let's do this. So I've seen this trend all over TikTok at the moment, and it's where someone will say, if you like this game, you should read this book. And there's two things that I love the most, and it's reading and it's gaming. So naturally I thought I have to do this. And I feel like I had some pretty good ideas for this, different to what people have been recommending. So without further ado, let's start. The first game is the Assassin's Creed series. So if you liked Assassin's Creed because of the really like gritty assassinations and you just loved the vibe of playing that trope of character, then you should read The Way of Shadows by Brent Weeks. Now, I spoke about this series in the last video, my book haul, and I love it. This is the first book in the Night Angel trilogy. I've read this 3 times. It is amazing. So in The Way of Shadows, we follow our main character, Kyler Stern, who starts off as what we call a guild rat. He has nothing. He's a child of poverty. He's an orphan, and he becomes apprenticed to the most dangerous assassin in the city. And like most apprentices, he overcomes the master and becomes the most dangerous assassin ever. He is a really morally grey character. He does some questionable things, but I think that just makes him more lovable because it really has an interesting character arc for him in the choices he makes and how he engages with the world around him and the impending war on his city. So Kyler Stern has a very cool magic power in this book, and it is very rare, very sought after, and it gets him in some hot water. So if you liked Assassin's Creed because of the very epic assassinations, there are some grisly ones in this one. Definitely would recommend. But if you liked Assassin's Creed because of the politics and the way that the assassins dabbled in the monarchy and changed history, and you also liked that more like stalkerish vibe of the assassins, you should read Assassin's Apprentice by Robin Hobb. This is a classic fantasy. It's quite old as a book. It's the first book in the Farseer trilogy, which I actually admittedly have only read book 1 and 2 for, but I really enjoyed this. So in Assassin's Apprentice, we follow Fitz, and like Kyler Stern, the book starts off with Fitz as a child, and he is a royal bastard, and the royal family plucks him up and says, you have to be our assassin or see you later. So Fitz becomes the royal assassin for this monarchy, and we really get to see his eavesdropping, his poisoning, his exploring the castle, making enemies, and he's really finding his feet in the world. He's learning what he values because he has to obviously be faithful to the crown, but is that really the right thing to do? You'll find out. So Assassin's Apprentice by Robin Hobb if you liked Assassin's Creed. Now, the next one, arguably my favorite game literally ever, and that is Skyrim. Now, 3 different book recommendations for Skyrim and a couple different reasons why. So if you liked Skyrim because of the Vikings and the Norse inspirations, and you really liked the battles, fighting with the Stormcloaks, and that real sense of like brotherhood and companionship in the fight scenes, then you should read The Hunger of the Gods by John Gwynne. I don't have a copy of this. I read it on my Kindle. My partner has a copy, but I didn't quite manage to steal it. So The Hunger of the Gods by John Gwynne. We have 3 main characters in this book, and it switches between each of their point of views. All of the main characters are really different. They aren't all in the same area, so you're just constantly wondering when and how they're going to intersect and if they're going to be on the same side. So that's a really interesting element to the book that John Gwynne has implemented. And in Skyrim, right, you've got the dead dragon trying to take over the world, and also dragons are being resurrected from extinction. They're not supposed to be coming back. Hunger of the Gods, the dead gods are coming back, and the dead gods were gods in human form, but they also had animal form. So we've got Ulfrid, the wolf god, who is this giant wolf that you see on the cover. And so the gods are supposed to be dead, but potentially that changes. So a couple similarities there. Now, if Hunger of the Gods is quite graphic, and if you think you're just in for a cozier, lighter read and you found Skyrim to be a cozy game for you, you should read Brother Band by John Flanagan. This is a kid's book. I read this as a kid. I don't quite remember the plot, but I remember the vibes, and the vibes were great. And of course, we have the Viking inspiration. It's called Scandia in this book, and we've got that sense of brotherhood and companionship in this book. So if you like Skyrim and thought it was cozy, you should read Brother Band. Now, the third recommendation for Skyrim, it's a bit different. If you liked Skyrim because of the dragons, and as the Dragonborn, you liked riding the dragons and just like the experience of the dragons, then you should read The Priory of the Orange Tree by Samantha Shannon. Now, in this book, exactly the same to Skyrim, there is a big dragon and he wants to take over the world. We can't have that. So we have a couple different main characters in this book, and it flicks between each of their point of views. And on one side of the world, we have people that work with the dragons, they ride the dragons, fight wars with the dragons are on their side. But then on the other side of the world, we have people who hate the dragons, incredibly fearful of the dragons. So they have to work together now to overcome the big crazy dragon. So how does that happen? Why does this happen? We've also got some guilds and factions in this book. We've got political intrigue in the monarchy. We've got a really beautiful romantic subplot happening in this book. There's just a lot going for it, and I ate this up. So if you like Skyrim for the dragons, you need to read The Priory of the Orange Tree by Samantha Shannon. The next game everyone has been seeing online, on TikTok, on Instagram. This game was blowing up, and it actually got Game of the Year for 2023. You know what I'm going to say, it's Baldur's Gate 3. Now, I feel like this is an incredibly obvious book recommendation, but if you liked Baldur's Gate 3, then you should read Drizzt by R.A. Salvatore. The first book in Drizzt, chronologically, is Homeland, and we follow Drizzt's life in the Underdark, and you know what the Underdark is if you've played Baldur's Gate 3. And we come to learn how he went from assassin of a monarch in the Underdark to little adventurer man on the surface. Obviously, this book is set in Faerûn in the Forgotten Realms, which is the D&D universe. You hear about a couple familiar cities in Baldur's Gate 3. We've got all the classic races and all the classic character tropes of Dungeons and Dragons. So it's just a really beautiful read. I would argue that this is cozy. You might find different though, but they're really enjoyable. It's written in the 80s, so it's quite a classic fantasy vibe. But I honestly think that's part of the charm of Baldur's Gate 3, is it has that really nice element of like old school fantasy where you really are choosing what you want to do and your decisions have massive impacts. So if you like Baldur's Gate 3, you need to read the Drizzt series by R.A. Salvatore. Now, the next one, if you like The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt, then you need to read The Witcher. I'm just kidding. If you like The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt, you should read Empire of the Vampire by Jay Kristoff. Again, I spoke about the sequel to this book, Empire of the Damned, in my book haul video. So, I see a lot of similarities, not in the actual plot itself, but in the character tropes of these two. Obviously, in The Witcher 3, we follow Geralt, who is a monster hunter. And in Empire of the Vampire, we follow Gabriel, who's a vampire hunter. He is a part of a guild that is a dying guild. It's really hard for them to get recruits. Obviously, the recruits are getting slaughtered by the vampires, and the witches are also a dying breed. So, we have two timelines in this book. We flash back to Gabriel's initiation into the guild and his many adventures as a vampire hunter. Peaches is snoring. And then we flash forward to Gabriel in jail. How'd that happen? I'm not going to tell you because I don't actually know. I haven't read book 2 yet. But this is really amazing. There's a really grumpy character element to Gabriel. He is very morally grey, does some super questionable things, but his main love interest gives off big Yennefer energy. So if you liked The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt, you should read Empire of the Vampire. Okay, this next one was like a bit of a challenge and a bit silly. It's not quite a serious thing. If you liked Genshin Impact, you should read 6 Crimson Cranes. Now, hear me out. In Genshin Impact, the underlying plot of the game is if you pick the female character, Lumine, she's looking for her brother who gets taken away from her by some crazy evil witch lady in the very beginning of the game. But 6 Crimson Cranes, we are following our main character who is looking for her brothers because 6 of them have been turned into cranes by her stepmother. And she's traveling across the world, getting the help of a lot of different cool mythical creatures and characters. And yeah, she needs to save the day. So this book has really beautiful world building. It just is so immersive. And that's also what I enjoyed about Genshin Impact is the art style and how beautiful the game was and the character designs. So if you liked Genshin Impact, you should read 6 Crimson Cranes. Now, my last recommendation is not fantasy. Thank goodness for that. And that is, if you like The Last of Us 1 and 2, then you should read Whitehorse by Alex Adams. I haven't actually played The Last of Us. I just watched like playthroughs on YouTube, and I feel like I've played it because of that. But I have read Whitehorse a couple times actually. I read this as a teenager, but we follow our main character, and there's 2 timelines. We have before and we have after. And it's really elusive in what before and after is like surrounding, but you can obviously deduce that it's some kind of apocalyptic event. So our main character is looking for her partner in the after timeline, and in the before, we're learning about the events leading up to what has happened. And this book is really similar to The Last of Us and like any post-apocalyptic piece of media, because everyone is fighting for themselves. You can't trust anyone in this book, and it's just a bit gritty. It's uncomfortable. The ending's not what you'd expect. So I really enjoyed this book, and I think if you like The Last of Us, you'll enjoy it too. So those are all my recommendations. I think I did pretty well with these. I love all of the games that I've spoken about, and I've loved all of these books. And I base my reading off of like vibes. So I'll be reading something and I'll be thinking, what does this remind me of? And I remember when I was reading Hunger of the Gods, I was playing Skyrim ambience on my TV while I was reading. So really obvious choice for that one. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video. I really want to post a what I read in April video at the end of this month, so stay tuned for that. If you have any games that you've played and you want me to try and find a book recommendation for, please let me know. Send me a message or like comment on the video, and I'll do my best to do that. I had a lot of fun making this video. I found it really enjoyable. I love to talk about books and I love to talk about games, so naturally I wanted to recreate this trend. Thank you for watching, and I will see you very soon. Bye!